quite sure whether I should start with who I am, since I'm saying who am I. The who am I is for all of us, because if there's one thing being in politics, being in public life teaches you, it's the importance of knowing who you are. And it's what helps to keep you grounded when things get a bit crazy. It's what helps to keep you anchored to whatever your values are when things are not so black and white, and they never are, actually. It's, uh, it's what helps to keep you positive and keep you away from the abyss of disillusionment and disappointment and despair as you see more and more that it's going to take a lot more than what one person can do to make a difference. So, who am I? We had a small introduction already. Medical doctor, mother of three, member of parliament. Those are the things I do. Who I am is something that I'm still discovering. And the process of finding out who we are, I think is a lifelong journey. And as long as we're learning something new about ourselves and about our fellow human beings, then we're adding something to the overall human consciousness, I believe. So the roles we play contribute to who we identify ourselves as, whether it's as a parent or as a mother, a father, as a daughter, a son, a political person, as activist, an environmentalist, which I like to think I am. But then who we are can also be determined by automatic behavior. So we get into patterns of things that we just do, and we don't think anymore about those things that we do, we just do them until something happens and it makes us stop and actually look in the mirror and question what it is that we're doing, why we're doing it. Or someone makes a comment, a harsh criticism that actually stops you dead in your tracks and makes you think, but where did that come from? There are various things. People classify the roles we play, the archetypes and all of that. But can you be who you are without the titles, without the roles that you play? Because ultimately, who you are is deep down. And the things that you do tend to be a reflection of what you're supposed to be inside. And that's a challenge that you face as a public figure, as a leader in your community, in your home, as a parent, as a role model, because your ability to be authentic as who you are, to be able to stand in your own power and say, this is who I am, to be able to declare, these are the values that I believe in, this is what I live by, and not be afraid to do so, is what helps us to push the boundaries, helps us to make the changes that we see that society needs. Because you will face resistance. There are people who are happy with the status quo, which means that if you are ready, if you are willing to make something different happen, if you're ready to press for progress, then you must actually be able to stand in your power and make those declarations and actually take the steps. But it all starts with who we are, because the first conflict that you have is never with anyone else, it's with yourself. And if you can understand who you are and who you are not, because who you are and who you're not are equally important, just as much as knowing what you want in life and what you don't want in life. And the thing with life is you only realize the value of knowing what you don't want as you move on in life. It's something that comes as experience develops. And what is your vision? Martin Luther King Jr. said, I have a dream. He had a dream, but he managed to bring it down and translate it into something that was tangible for people. Because it's all well and good to have this big vision of what you want to do, the changes you want to make in the world. But in order to make these attainable, in order to make it seem for everyone that it's possible, you now have to break this dream up into something that feels more grounded, that is more paced, that is broken up into little steps that are achievable, that you can say, okay, we've taken one step, this is what we've achieved, now we can vote, we're women, now we've taken another step, we don't have to have our accounts in our husband's name, so we can actually open accounts in our own names. We've taken a step, we can get into parliament now, we have equal rights, somewhat, and so on. The point is, what our vision is, individually, for example, needs to be something that we can bring to everybody that we're trying to share that dream with. The youth. Unfortunately, now when we speak about the youth, it just seems to come with negative connotations, and that's sad, because it is the youth that built everything that you see in the world today. They were young at some point. We call them, the elderly people now, or the ancestors because they passed on. But they were all young once upon a time. They had that vibrant energy, that feeling that they were invincible and they could conquer things. They could get past the elements and manage to build all sorts of amazing structures and change the world. They were young ones. Ghana has a youthful population. So does the continent. So does the world. But are we seeing this explosion, as it's called? Now, there again, you see the use of words. The population explosion. Explosion is hardly ever thought of in a positive sense, to start with. So already the youth is tagged as not being so great, and now there's this explosion of the youth, which is even more scary. But really, is it a strength or a weakness? Is it a threat or an opportunity? We can see it in a positive light. Nation builders, leaders. Sometimes I visit the tertiary institutions when I'm invited to, join the group for whether it's the SRC weeks and whatever else. And, the question is, when we become. And I said, no, you are the leaders. You can actually make the changes now. I almost feel as if the youth are feeling this weight on their shoulders because there's an older generation that is not even acknowledging the fact that they were at that age when they made the changes in the world. And the youth are still seen as children. So are the youth being seen, really seen? Because if we really want the youth to lead, then the youth need to be given that opportunity, that space. Do we actually know what the youth of the continent desire for the continent? Do we share that vision with them? And is there somewhere in the middle where the vision of the generation that's older meets up with the younger generation so that there's a synergy between the two that makes it better? Because we can't keep thinking about the future as one that is filled with doom and gloom. I have 3 children. I don't want to think that the future is so terrible for them. But the trend that we're observing lends us to believe that that's where it's going. But we can change it. We can change it. There are places in the world where there was desert, and people took it upon themselves to start replanting trees. And now they have forests. There were places where the aquatic life had been depleted. And slowly and steadily, people believed it could happen again. And there's something about life, there's something about nature that when good intentions and good actions go into something, somehow life supports good. And we have to believe that. We cannot afford to believe that everything is going to go wrong. We must be the positive voice. We have to be the ones. Agre said that when you educate a man, you educate an individual, and when you educate a woman, you educate a nation. That in itself, and this was long ago, that in itself should tell us the value that women have in society. In the Asante culture, the queen mother is the one who chooses the king. When there are matters that involve conflict and require mediation, it is the queen mother who presides over these mediation councils. And this was long before the United Nations even realized the value of having women on boards and committees that deal with peace building and conflict resolution. Long, long before. So even intrinsically, deep in our culture, we know the value of women. And we shouldn't lose that in the name of modernization, in the name of development. There is a lot of good that we can still take advantage of from our own culture, from our past. Yes, like every other culture, like every other nation, we have our negatives. And we still have them today. And as Mrs. Ohene was saying, going into politics as a woman doesn't make it easier. Sometimes it's actually harder. Sometimes it's actually harder. And sometimes the issues that people choose to raise regarding a woman's eligibility, you often wonder if every man was judged by the same standard that women are judged, no man would be in politics today. Because the issues are the things we all know about. Oh, you know, she said she's not married, or she's having an affair with so and so. And I'm not condoning anything per se. All I'm trying to say is, we don't hear the men who are doing the same and more being tagged in the name of politics, in the name of campaigning, as a means of stopping their ascension into whatever field that they wish to go into. And it should not be encouraged or entertained in the case of women. We need more women involved at all levels. The women do so much already, but don't have the recognition. And the other thing as well is, when we have these conversations about women's empowerment and the girl child and making sure we have more women representation and everything, I think there's this underlying fear, this effect of fear that's the undercurrent of men thinking that we are doing this feminist revolution and, you know, we're going to do something negative. It's a complementary thing. Every society needs the balance of men and women to actually develop in a sustainable fashion. And in wanting more women involved, it's just to correct the balance. We're currently out of balance. I would like to believe that if we had more women in various sectors, especially in politics and economics around the world, I would like to believe that we would be encountering fewer conflicts than we're seeing now. In every conflict that happens, it's the women and children who suffer the most. It is the women and children who suffer the most. Whether it's Liberia, or whether it's Chechnya, or whether it's, it doesn't matter where it is. The women and children are the ones who always suffer the most. When you go to the refugee camps, the suffering doesn't end there. The women and children continue to suffer the different levels of abuse or rape or all sorts of things. So, the empowerment of women is the empowerment of a community. Human rights, when we talk about women's rights, it is a human rights issue. It is not just about women. Every person on this planet was born of a woman. So if for nothing at all, we must recognize the value of women and have that, there's a certain mutual respect we need to have for one another. And I think we need to do more engagement with the men so that there isn't this misconception of what it is we're trying to achieve. Because there's an impression that women are trying to overpower the men and take over. But I actually don't think most women are looking to do that. Most women are just looking for a fair deal and a fair chance to get ahead and to not be judged because of their gender. And the issue, that discussion regarding women and the empowerment of women and whether it's pushing for the affirmative action, all of that, it needs sensitization as well. I don't call myself a feminist. I believe in the rights of women and children, but I believe in the rights of all human beings. Growing up, firstborn child, girl, my dad did not teach me things or decide to not teach me things because I was a girl. So I actually never thought about my limitations based on my gender, which means that at some point I actually needed to sensitize myself to the fact that that is not the case everywhere. And that things go wrong for women simply because they are women. And so the issue of sensitization is not just for the men. It's for all of us to understand the value of what it is we are trying to achieve by talking about pressing for progress. And when we are talking about International Women's Day, it has to be a day not just of celebration of what we've achieved, but of actually looking back and seeing the theme of last year. What was it? What have we achieved in the last 1 year? What tangible changes have we made? What have we achieved? Because otherwise we end up having a new theme every year, celebrating Women's Day every year with a new theme, but we need to have some kind of an evaluation of what we've achieved. And I think if we can do that, then we know whether we're actually taking the little steps that will get us where we want to get to. Because I think progress sometimes is like an angle, like not quite a right angle triangle, but you have one on the horizontal axis, and then you have one on the vertical axis, not quite vertical, but anyway, going this way. And as you make little changes, you find that you have big changes in the end. If you're flying a plane and your direction is supposed to be 060 degrees and you veer off by 3 degrees, that's fine if you've only traveled maybe 1 mile. But by the time you've traveled 10 miles, you're completely off course. So the little corrections that we have to make along the way are the reason why we need to look back and see what have we achieved over the past year as we plan long-term going forward. And just a little something for the ladies. Sorry, men. But women, especially moms, always feel guilty looking after themselves because society makes you feel bad for thinking that you need to look out for yourself as well. But you know, when you're on the plane, what do they say? Even if you're sitting next to a child, put your own oxygen mask on and then put it on for the child. You need to be well. You need to look after yourself so that you can be a better person for the rest of humanity. You need to know who you are. You need to be authentic. Let people know who you are and stand by what you believe in. Manage your energy. Don't allow people to drain you for no reason. Stand your power. If you know who you are, it's difficult for people to take away that bit of you that is the best of you to make humanity better. Thank you.